conversation on securing national assets and the role played by state governors. We have in the studio the technical advisor on communications and strategy to the Bayelsa State Governor, Evarada Don Abednego. It's good to have you in our studio this morning.
Good to have you here.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good morning. Well, let's jump straight into what we have now. You come from a region that hosts many of Nigeria's critical assets, especially in oil and gas. In the past, we've seen quite a number of unrest in that region. What can you tell us has changed exactly, and what has been done differently, to calm the situation in that region?
Yeah, I think it's a truism that we have a kind of checkered history over the years due to agitations, struggles for self-realization and through federalism. Bearing in mind that it's a region and indeed a state that the people always have concerns about what God has endowed in their land and what is used to develop virtually every front of the country, and in their own land, a total neglect. It was like that for many years, but I think the times have changed. Our people, Bayelsa State and indeed the John Nation, you can extend it to the Niger Delta, have come to a realization that after all, crisis ordinarily will not yield anything positive. And it's on the strength of that I want to say in a bit religious way that God's blessed Bayelsa State with a governor that believes that first, priority should be given to the protection and preservation of lives and property. That erases why today a new strategic implant in terms of security in Bayelsa State has created an opening where everyone feels that, things have changed. How? The youths have been engaged. The community leaders have been woven in. There is an interconnectivity between agencies and government. New bridges that never existed have been built. The ones that existed then that were broken have been reconstructed through collaboration and partnership on necessity. That is good leadership. And most importantly, internalizing the concepts of crime fighting, protection of critical assets. Remember, Bayelsa State isn't just a state. It's a state that holds a great percentage of the wealth of this country in terms of crude production. If anything goes wrong in Bayelsa State, don't ask me. Nigeria will sneeze on the other side. The reason being that Bayelsa State is a state that is standing between Delta State and River State. All that happens in Delta State and River State drags its foot from Bayelsa. And the Jos, their extremes in agitations and crisis is not compared to any part of this country. So what has changed? That's the question you're asking. In Bayelsa State today, there is a zero tolerance for crime and criminality. And the reason being that, for a people so forgotten for many years, for us to get to the level that we desire, first we must get it right in security. And that is why everyone believes that protecting the environment, critical assets of government so that we'll have revenue to build the bridges, the schools, to profile the educational status of our state. It requires that peace and tranquility reigns. That's what we're having today. And we're giving kudos to all critical stakeholders from government, security agencies, and most importantly, the people for internalizing the concept of crime fighting in their morals and conscience.
All right. Yeah, quite interesting that you said the government of the days involving the people, which is one of the new security strategy, people-oriented security. Now, I remember when we had this crisis between the suspension of Governor Fubara, a lot of people thought that the Ijaw Nation will play an active role in trying to resist that. But it didn't happen, and I think the credit should go that, look, the Bayelsa people did not get involved. But beyond just saying that the government is involving the people, was it that the security vote was increased? Or what was it? What was that thing that was increased, that the governor suddenly have the latitude and the resource to bring in the people? Every other state have some of this type of restiveness, and they have the security vote. So how did it happen? Help us to understand.
I think you can take it from three aspects or perspectives. One is patriotism. The governor has shown an uncommon patriotism, his love for his motherland and love for this country. He understands what his people passed through over the years, the pains we had in the course of crisis agitations, militancy, etc. Nothing good came out of it on the short run. Though sometimes people will say, We got NDDC as a way of calming down the people of the Niger Delta as an interventionist agency. And of course, we can say it for the right reasons too. NDDC of recent is doing fantastically well. And that is why it is good for the region to be very peaceful so that those interventions can be made. On the other side, after patriotism, we're now talking about strategic thinking. You don't just come and say, oh, there is a security vote and you think it creates a magical wand to turn things around. No. Strategic thinking requires that you look at the peculiarity of the environment, the history of your people, the immediate and the long-term needs. That is why, as a government, we realize that, look, the police and security agencies may be doing their kinetic arrangement, but we realize that, look, it doesn't work. Kinetic arrangement in terms of the jaws and Bayelsa State, the Niger Delta, is not a plausible idea in crime fighting. So what then do? We must work on the basis of inclusivity. And that is why if a police officer, a security man working in Bayelsa State, sometimes you wonder whether you're in Nigeria. The reason being that the people have come to show ownership and responsibility. Crime fighting, preservation of life, protection of critical assets of government is the responsibility of every person. How are we getting it right? It's show of leadership, but when you combine patriotism and strategic thinking and work on the streams of inclusivity, nothing is impossible. And therefore, there in Bayelsa State, it's not about how much has been spent, even though we know there isn't a state in this country that is spending much more than Bayelsa State in terms of investment in strategic security. But that is the level of physical security. What we are doing is emotional balancing in terms of internalizing the concept of ownership and responsibility, protecting and preserving life and properties. You see, look, it has never been this rosy in Bayelsa State. Our fears will always be, can this democracy be sustained? Can we get another governor that will come and inherit and sustain what we've been able to make in Bayelsa State that is affecting virtually the entire region of Niger Delta? Because peace in Bayelsa State is a path on the back of all states, every state in this country, and most importantly, crude oil production that the federal government and Mr. President is talking about increasing it from, what we have to 2 million and more. It is realizable if there is peace in Bayelsa State. And that is what we are standing to say. This is a good one. And the presidency and all critical stakeholders in the country are leading to the fact that the peace in Bayelsa State is enabling the federal government to pursue this dream, and of course it's realizable. I will must sustain the peace in Bayelsa State. All
right, we'll still have more to discuss on this strategic approach to security, but that will be right after this break. Don't go anywhere, we still have more for you on the program. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
When malaria knocks you down, you can be sure parasites are having a party in your system.
Welcome to our new kingdom, guys!
Comel, an effective weapon against malaria.
Comel!
Attacking the parasite army directly to give you express relief and get you back on your feet effectively. Comel on. Malaria gone.
The most trusted toothpaste for kids.
Why do 7 out of 10 kids have cavities, sir? Double Herbal contains clove. My mother says it contains eugenol, which is 100% effective in cavity protection.
Where there's clove, there's no cavity.
Introducing the new Jig Sachet. Whitening your whites has never been more affordable. Now you can keep whites shining brighter and disinfect by killing 99.9% of germs on your floors and other surfaces. Just jig it with Jig Sachet.
Martin Luther King Jr. was born in Atlanta, Georgia, January 15, 1929. The son of a Baptist minister, King received a doctorate degree in theology and in 1955 helped organize the first major protest of the African American civil rights movement, the successful Montgomery bus boycott. King participated in and led marches for the right to vote, desegregation, labor rights, and other civil rights.
We're glad to have you back. You're still watching FCT Brief, and we're still discussing strategic security with Bayelsa State in focus. We still have with us in the studio the Commissioner on Communications and Strategy to the Bayelsa State Governor, Evarada Don Abednego. Well, I like that name.
It's technical advice. It's technical advice, not commissioner.
Oh, technical advice. I beg your pardon. Well, let's move along. Tantas Security Services has been praised for protecting the oil pipelines and boosting oil production. But recently, we hear talks about a tension between them and security agencies. Can you let us into what is actually happening?
I think anytime the government strategically brings in non-formal security arrangements to drive the process of strengthening the security facets of the country, it's always a good thing because that is part of involving the people. It is true that with the introduction of Tantas Security in the Niger Delta particularly, it has yielded fantastic dividends. It has not happened because they have a magical wand. It is because the governors within the region have realized that, look, the only way they can drive development in their areas to ensure peace and tranquility, to protect critical assets of government. You cannot allow crude oil thefts, in your area and pipeline vandalization because some communities feel that they have been over-marginalized, even though sometimes we know it's reasonably plausible thoughts in the minds of the people. You can't have pipelines like in my family. In my mom's place, a community called Realisable, pipelines are passing under the kitchen and the beds of people. And you don't see any federal presence in that area. And you realize that when you come to Abuja, you see flyovers on dry land. And in our place, you can't have one that looks like a kilometer of federal road. It's embarrassing. And so sometimes the people may be lured into doing things that are sinister in nature. But all of that, we say, we must talk to our people. We must work together. And so when you say you have Tantita, what does Tantita do? Is to complement the conventional security agencies, one, in procurement of informations, and of course they do not carry arms. Much so, we are trying to discourage anything kinetic arrangement within the Niger Delta, and we're using Bayelsa State at all times as a case study that we can get it right in security with zero kinetic arrangement if only we're within the people. There is therefore isn't any conflict whatsoever. But because we have interrelationships as human beings, sometimes there could be a little misunderstanding, but we always gloss it through and work over all of that. What we have today is a beautiful collaboration between Tantita, the people of the different communities, security agencies, and it can't be better than now. All we need is sustaining it, and it will yield better dividends for this country, for the federal government and the state government, because we get our emoluments largely from the federal government to drive the process of development and change.
Okay. No state can claim to be an island when it talks about when we talk about security or economic development. Now, in the Niger Delta, what is the relationship of the various states, especially Bayelsa? Because if Bayelsa is safe, like you said, and your neighboring states are not safe, you're going to have a spillover of criminality into your state. So what are you doing in collaboration with other states to ensure that we have security in the Niger Delta or in the South, and to have this economic integration of the various states?
Yeah, I think the desires of the people of the Niger Delta are largely the same, except that Bayelsa State has a much more, difficult terrain in terms of development. And also crime fighting, because it's more riverine than River State. And my former principal, Senator Henry Sirake Dixon, will say Bayelsa State is more riverine than River State and more deltaic than Delta State because of the sea, the rivers, the streams, the creeks, the rivulets. Bayelsa State is indeed on top of water, and therefore crime fighting in terms of security is much more difficult than River State and Delta State. But having said that, we have come to the realization that we cannot get it strategically if we're not weaving the requisite support from sister states. And that's why the governor of Bayelsa State continues to show leadership by reaching out to the governor of Delta State, the governor of River State, and beyond just the governors of these states, bringing traditional rulers, opinion leaders, critical stakeholders across party line, bipartisan. And it's been working because we understand that over the years, and not just within our region, what the conventional security agencies have been able to do, and they continue to do, sometimes they are overstretched. It's sometimes not yielding the result because the perquisites of operations are sometimes so in lack. What they are in Bayelsa State, we try to let other states to know that, look, we're providing the watercrafts, the landcrafts. We are providing area coverage. And let me say it for the right reasons. In Bayelsa State, both the exit and the entry points of the state are covered aerially. The quantum of drones we have in Bayelsa State can be compared to what any state has. The federal intelligence agencies in this country will understand that crime fighting in Bayelsa State is beyond what the state does. Because of our difficult terrain, we decided to apply advanced technology by acquiring logistics from foreign countries. And the police can attest to that, the DSS can attest, the military, what the Navy does in Bayelsa State in terms of marine operations is largely what they get from Nigeria Police Command in Bayelsa State, because our drones are up in the sky, mapping and monitoring everywhere. Look, let me say it. There is no part of Bayelsa State that if you are committing a crime, that you are not going to be captured, and not just your image, even the voicing, because it's HD definition in all things. That is our advanced technology that we are working with foreign countries. And when we come to talk about security in Bayelsa and the essence of collaboration and building synergies with other states, when any governor gets to Bayelsa State within our region, they say, how are you doing it? And when they are giving just a tip of it, they marvel. And that is why even the National Security Advisor understands that, look, the peace in Bayelsa State is not just because it's just one piece. It's because there's leadership, and this is strategic, and it's working because there's collaboration of necessity between the government, showing leadership, patriotism, inclusivity. Because another thing that sometimes poses grave challenges and imperative threats is when you think that you're going to abandon some people, exclude them. No, good governance, and especially in strategic security, requires that within every person, the nest of fighting crime must involve all persons. The governor of Bayelsa State does not know a political party when it comes to matters of security. So whether you're the UPC, Labour Party, any party, PDP, all of us, because if we're safe, then Bayelsa State is safe. You first have a safer environment before you start thinking about becoming the governor or president or senator. And that is why we're driving the process with patriotism, inclusivity, and showing an uncommon political will and zero interference in matters of crime and criminality. We use the moment to also urge all governors in the country that where crimes and criminality, matters of crime and criminality are perpetuated in your region, please allow the security agency to do the needful. We have an uncommon law enforcement process in Bayelsa State that the governor does not in any way get involved. He allows the security agency to do the job, but the governor, through certain committees, monitors and ensures that proper evaluation, investigation, arrest, and prosecution are done without malice.
All right, quite interesting. But I'd like us to move into another matter now. It's been over 2 years since we heard about the NDDC forensic audit, but there's no full report on that yet. It's yet to be made public. Doesn't this send a wrong message? Many people believe it's covering up corruption. What do you have to say about that?
I think the question can be much more better than being asked now. A couple of years back, my former principal, the governor of Bayelsa State, then Henry Sirake Dixon, now distinguished senator of the Federal Republic, formed a committee, for monitoring NDDC projects in Bayelsa State. I was a member of that committee, and I can say it for free that we realized that we have thousands of abandoned projects littered in Bayelsa State. Thousands abandoned projects. We went to the NDDC and collated a lot of facts. We documented all of that. And sometimes, it was so revealing that you realize that virtually every senior citizen of this country has a hand in the mess that was going on in NDDC. And I understand that same thing is replicated in virtually every other state within the Niger Delta region. It tells the fact why the NDDC never delivered as an interventionist agency until a moment ago when a gentleman came from the Bayelsa axis, Dr. Samuel Lubuku, to become the MD. And state after state after state, irrespective of party lines, alluding to the fact that it is now we are beginning to realize that, yes, NDDC as an interventionist agency is doing what needs to be done. However, when you talk about the forensic audit reports of the federal government on the NDDC, as Bayelsans and as a Jaws, we would have loved to see it being published. I had it a couple of days ago on one of the TV channels, certainly not this one, when a senior citizen and a top government functionary was requesting Mr. President to publish that audit, forensic audit report. But I can say it too, that if that audit report is published, a lot of heads will roll in this country. Because in our communities, in our neighborhoods, everywhere in the Niger Delta, people from north, from south, from east, adjust themselves, all of us. A whole lot of our people got involved. It was a sleazy arrangement. And therefore, I'm also lending the voice of credence to the call for the release of that forensic audit report. It will guide us, even if people are not going to be persecuted, as sometimes it's done in this country. Let it be written that that man, those people, were part of underdeveloping the Niger Delta, and that is why we are where we are today.
Okay, let's pray that that call is acceded to. The other thing I want us to take a look at is the Bayelsa State governor. There's a lot of movement, the political season, and some are moving into the APC, while some have been said to be preparing to move into the ADC. PDP is in crisis, and your governor is a governor on the platform of the PDP. Is he likely to move, and where is he moving to?
When the governor came in, yes, through the instrumentality of politics or democracy, he came with one particular reason or interest to develop Bayelsa State and, of course, extend leadership within the Ijaw communities of the country. It is true that in Bayelsa State, the interest of the people, and indeed the interest of the governor, is not about politics, and politics. It's about using the resources of states to make our people become better human beings, to turn around the challenges of our environment that has been largely degraded in terms of oil exploration and exploitation, to ensure that they give confidence to the people that, yes, even though the federal government abandoned us over the years from the beginning of the republic called Federal Republic of Nigeria to date, it is time for us to make a self-realization, and therefore we must turn things around and bring prosperity to bear. Bringing prosperity to bear requires that, look, we first guarantee security of lives and property, and that is why today in Bayelsa State, when we're talking, this discourse today is part of a essence of seeing Bayelsa as the safest states in the country, from the presidency to the police, DSS, national intelligence agencies. They say same thing, Bayelsa State is the safest state. How did we do that? Ensuring that we're within all persons, use the resource of the state to drive to that, towards that direction. If we get it right in security, we'll get it right in other sectors. Number two, reprofiling the educational status of Bayelsa State. The Jaws we are likely seen as people that were underdeveloped in terms of education. Today, as it stands, you can attest it. In virtually every national examination, Bayelsa State is rated between first, third, and worst, fifth. The reason because the level of investment we're making in education is top-notch. We are building the schools. We are training the teachers. We are making a fantastic reward for those who are imparting knowledge. And I can tell you, collaboration within local international organizations, including Microsoft, bringing what we call Bayelsa Prime, first in the country, is fantastic. In terms of healthcare, Medicare.
You've not answered my question.
I'm going there. I'm telling you what our interest is and what the governor is leaning on, and not just this defection of his thing. And we're saying the health service delivery in Bayelsa State is fantastic. Look, there are times you get to Bayelsa State. For those who are listening, please take a time or speak with your correspondents. You think Bayelsa State is under siege sometimes because the airspace is mostly inundated by drones going from one location to other to deliver health consumables to health centers, secondary, primary, and even tertiary health centers to ensure that Bayelsa State is safer. And we're building critical infrastructure, roads and bridges for places that were abandoned. 3 central roads, building the brass road, and that's why the president called.
Mr. Abednego,
can we come?
Yeah, so I'm now going to the question.
No, you're going.
I'm going to the question.
Don't go there. Just answer the question.
So I just wanted to let you understand the interest of the state and what the governor is interested in. Yes, it's true. There are these persuasions that, the Idri is going to be next, since almost all persons within the region, the South, are going to the APC. Look, I just took a little time to give clarity to what the interest of the governor is. The governor is not perturbed about these insinuations and rumors. He's interested in prosperity. And besides, is the governor under any pressure to go to any political party? He just won an election for his second tenure, and he's delivering. In Bayelsa State, we don't know whether other political parties exist, because both the APC, Labour Party, PDP is a collection, it's an inclusive government. Leadership in Bayelsa State does not know colors of party. And so when you talk about let's go to another party, to do what? Will he give us more roads? Look, a few months back, because of the Brass Road road that the governor is building, that the presidency had security reports, he called our governor to the villa and said, Senator Diri, You mean you're doing this road that has, he said, yes, for that reason, second phase of the road, I'm taking over. Immediately, the federal government, through the Federal Executive Council, awarded the job of 129 billion.
In 2027, your governor will be supporting which of the candidates?
It's so far. Look, within now and
it's just less than 1 year.
I'm telling you, within now and 2027, we want to see the governor of Bayelsa State build more bridges, build more schools, strengthen infrastructure in the state, advance the course of service delivery in Medicare and Medicaid, to ensure that senior citizens of the state who serve 35 years continue to enjoy pension and gratuity, to ensure that civil servants have pride in their services, to build capacity on common capacity. Look, it is the intention of Governor Deidre to build a new middle class.
So Evarada, we don't want to respond to our
technically
question.
dodged that question, but I think I understand where you're going to, but let's leave that.
But I said it
another
pointedly, the governor does not have defection on the menu. What is on the menu is prosperity for the people of the state. And nobody in Bayelsa State is talking about defection. Those are stories and rumors. We are in from afar. But as a party note, it's important to say, Deidre is a beautiful bride in this country. Every political party, every household, everyone wants Deidre to be close to him. But he has just one interest: the job people, delivering deliverables and necessities of life.
We would definitely keep an eye on Bayelsa State. We must say thank you so much for the conversation this morning. It was quite insightful, interesting, I must say. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I will pray for continuous collaboration with your station.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's where we'll leave the conversation this morning. We hope you enjoyed this as much as we did. We'll now hand you over to Lagos, where Veronica and the rest of the crew are standing by to continue with the rest of the show.
All right, thank you, TJ Sue, for that interview. Back in Lagos, it's time now for stories that are